Well, here we are back with part 4 of the garage room conversion, and as promised, I'm going to show you how I'm going to move this light switch from behind the door to the other side with no additional wiring. First step is to go ahead and replace these ceramic light fixtures with some new 13-inch drum lights. This process is pretty straightforward. I went ahead and turned the light switch off and then used my electrical tester to make sure that the electric actually is off at the ceiling. I always caution folks to make sure they don't just trust the light switch to make sure there's no electricity at the ceiling box, because depending on when your house was wired and how, it is possible that there could still be electric at the ceiling box even when the switch is in the off position. This particular light is at the end of the circuit, so it's pretty simple, just one white wire and one black wire, and so I'll hook white to white and black to black. Now the shade of this light is fabric, and we also have a nice freshly painted white ceiling, so I always like to wash my hands to make sure I don't leave any dirty fingerprints on anything. Now we're going to be putting this on a dimmer, so you want to make sure you get dimmable light bulbs, and it'll say dimmable right on the front cover. It's especially important to look for, especially if you are using LED light bulbs. I went ahead and left the protective plastic coating on this until the final step, just to make sure that I continue to keep that fabric shade protected. And before popping the bottom cover on it, I'll go ahead and make sure the light works, and then get that bottom cover snapped into place. And with the first light fixture installed, we'll go ahead and move on to the second one. Whenever I'm picking out light bulbs for a room, I like to think about the purpose of the lighting and the feel that I want the room to have. Now for this room, I want it to have more of a relaxed feeling, and so I'm choosing a warmer light. The color temperature of these bulbs is 2700 K or Kelvin. Generally, I prefer a warmer light unless it's for a specific purpose, like task lighting in a kitchen or maybe at the bathroom mirror. And with both lights installed, we'll go ahead and try turning those on. Now we're still on the old single pole light switch behind the door, but here shortly we're going to move into the portion of switching that out. And now we will work on moving that light switch from one side to the other with no additional wiring, and I'll show you how we did that. This is a wireless dimmer switch that I found on Amazon.com. There are two components with this light switch: the wireless remote with frame that mounts to the wall, and the wireless receiver, which we will be wiring in place of the existing single pole switch. There are 3 wires on this receiver. One is for the line in, or the power, the other is for the switch leg or wire that runs to the light fixture, and the third is the neutral. Now at the light fixtures, I turned the switch off and then double checked to make sure that there was no power there. But here at the switch, we do need to make sure that the power is turned off. Fortunately for me, the electric panel was right next to the switch, and I was able to quickly find the appropriate breaker and get it turned off. Of course, I did go ahead and double check just to make sure that the power was off. Now, as is the case here, there's really no clear indication as to which of the wires on the switch is the power wire and which is the switch leg. So here in a moment, you'll see after I get both wires off the switch, I will hold my tester up to the wire and then temporarily turn the power back on to see which one reads live. And now that I know which wire is supplying power, I can deduce that the other one is the switch leg, so I make sure I get them hooked to the proper wires on the receiver. I want to go ahead and mention here that the technology in this receiver unit does require it to be wired to a neutral, so you have to have a neutral present in that box to wire to. Now, if your house has modern wiring, you should have a neutral at the switch box. However, in some older homes, the power wire may have been run to the ceiling box itself, which is why I always caution folks to never rely on the light switch to make sure the power is off. As long as you are certain that you have the power turned off, this project should be suitable for a do-it-yourselfer who has some basic wiring skills. But if you have any questions on whether or not you have a neutral present in this box, or if perhaps you find more wires than you were expecting, I strongly encourage you to consult a licensed electrician. Working with electricity can be very dangerous, so when in doubt, hire it out. I've already got the power and the switch leg wired into this receiver, and now I'm just working on opening up this neutral splice so that I can wire in the neutral. This receiver is wired with stranded wire, which can sometimes be challenging to connect to the solid copper wiring in your home. So after getting the wire nuts tightened on, I always like to tug on that wire just to make sure I've got a good connection. Now that I have the receiver wired in, I will get out the remote and test to see if it works. The remote easily pops right out of the frame, and I'll just pull out the battery pull tab and give it a try. Have you ever gotten so focused on a task that something obvious slips right past you? Some of you probably realized before I did that I forgot to turn the power back on, and that's why the remote wasn't working. I'll go ahead and run it through a series of tests of turning it on and off and testing the dimmer buttons, and since it works, we'll move on to the next step of the process. You can see there's a red indicator light inside the receiver to show that it is on. Now I will go ahead and take a measurement to the bottom of this box. That way when we place the new switch on the other side, we'll have it at the same height. I wanted to mention some other options available with these remote switches. Some are available in just a simple on-off, and then they also have three-way switches. So if you have a room where you need an additional switch, there are options available where instead of just the receiver, there is an in-wall switch and then the additional remote, giving you the option to have multiple locations to turn on the same light fixture. Now, since I only need one switch, then the remote with the receiver was the best option for me. So once I get the location set and use my torpedo level to make sure that it's plumb, I go ahead and attach the frame to the wall. And since this is just a surface mount, there's no need for a box and it can be mounted directly to the drywall. With the back plate securely attached to the wall, we will snap on the cover plate and we are ready to put the remote in place. One of the great features that I really love about this is the remote can be left in place to act as a switch, or if you want, you can take it off the wall and carry it over with you to use from anywhere in the room. Since everything is wired up and working properly, now we can go ahead and take the wires and the receiver and tuck them back inside the box. And we'll just use a blank cover to cover that up. And there you have it. We have successfully moved the light switch from one side of the door to the other with no additional wiring required. I hope you're enjoying my garage room conversion series. My next video will include the installation of a feature wall, which I really think is going to transform this space. I'm excited to share it with you. Thanks for watching.